To be bringing you some really interesting guests who are making waves out there in the business world, who are really challenging the status quo and stepping up to be who they are, despite the odds, and winning. And we trust that through this masterclass, you are going to be empowered, you're going to be inspired, and you're going to be ignited to be all that you can be. And we're going to unleash the potential that's inside of you so that you can also be someone who is changing your world and someone who is helping others change their world along the way. So we're starting off the masterclass, and we're going to be talking about leveraging online technology for success. And we have really a cool panel this morning who's going to be chatting with you. I want to introduce to you first my co-moderator, Mervyn Naidu. Many of you guys know him. He's no stranger to Crystal. He's no stranger to legacy. He's walked this journey with me in business for a good couple of years. He's the head of business development at MediaMark for Kaya FM. And this is a man who's really made a stand for God, and he stand for God, and he stand for all that's right in the business world has really just put him on a path for accelerated success. And I'm really excited to have Mervyn as moderator in our first masterclass. So Mervyn, welcome once again to Legacy. We're looking forward to chatting with you this morning.
Llewellyn, thank you so much for having me here, and I'm glad to be a part of this. Thank you so much for always affording us the opportunity to be able to share. And thank you to the church and the leadership of this church for what you guys are doing to help and equip businessmen. I think it's important for us, especially from a Christian perspective, to be able to look at why we're doing this. And when you spoke to me about doing a master class and said from the last session that we had, the question was, what are the practical things that are out there? And we set a task saying, instead of just making it a talk shop, let's make sure there's a platform to give information and to share that information in a way that people can engage with us. So I hope that you guys are going to be putting your stuff onto questions, onto the chat platforms that are available. Share with us any comments. If it's on YouTube or on Facebook, please will you share that with us? We'd love to take your questions around this. That's the purpose of this session, firstly. So it's not us talking about the things, it's about us answering some of the pressing pain points that you may have. But I just like to make two comments, and the first one is with regards to when Moses was asked to lead the people out of a land of poverty and a land where they had less than enough, where they were making bricks and sustaining themselves from day to day. And the question that God asked Moses was, what is in your hand? And today, as we go through the session, I want to ask each one of you, what is in your hand? You may say like, but I know I don't have the skills like Duan. I don't have the good looks like Uncle Llewellyn. I don't have all of these these things to, that's going to make me a success. But I'm sure there's something that you have in your hand that's able to part the Red Sea that you're facing.
Yes.
And I want to encourage you with that today, that there is something in your hand. And look carefully as to what that is. For myself, it was cooking, and it was the weirdest thing that I'd look at. But that was something that God gave me to do, and it helped me to bring in extra income for my family. So it may look like a menial thing, but there's something that God's placed in your hand. Then the second thing that I'd like to say, we often pray like, we've got the session with Duan, and suddenly today we're going to come out of this with more money. God never gives us money. He gives us ideas.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so you may say like, but I've got this great idea, and you do nothing with it. Guess what? You're not going to make any money. When God gives you the idea, take the next step in faith. And I trust that today faith will be activated in your lives to take that next step to do what God's asking you to do. So I'm really excited to share this platform with Llewellyn and Duan. And thanks, Llewellyn. Over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Mervyn. Now you see, guys, this is why Mervyn is no stranger to legacy. Mervyn is such a great ambassador of what legacy is all about. Remember that we are real men, we live in a real world, and we serve a real God.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I just want to give credit and honor where honor is due. Thank you so much to our senior pastor and founders, Dr. Carl and Pastor Joan Hendricks, for this opportunity, for creating a platform for us to actually empower our community and empower the people around us and those who we care about for success. So guys, those who have already joined us live, welcome. I want to encourage you to keep sharing. Share this event right now. Get as many of your friends and your family, your co-workers, your colleagues, even the people you don't like. Invite them to join us on this live stream this morning. We want to encourage you to keep engaging with us. Send us your comments. Drop your questions in the comments. We will be watching those, and we will be discussing those with our guests. I want to introduce our guest this morning. And our guest this morning, Duan, I was actually on your Facebook profile and on your LinkedIn profile because I'm a professional stalker. As a chartered marketer and a digital strategist, it's my job to be a stalker, and I stalk people on social media, especially people who I want to talk to, so that I can see them. I want to see who you are, what you're saying, and evaluate before I even get into a real conversation with you. So I've been stalking you. So guys, let me introduce you to Duan van Schalkwyk, a cinematographer, film editor, 3D animator, graphic and web designer, self-employed who works, and he's founded a dynamic company called, Duan, help me here. This is, I think I've...
Design and Visual Solutions.
There we go. Design and Visual Solutions. And something that really just blew my mind at the beginning of this week, or last week, when I was doing some of my social stalking, and I saw that you announced that you've just won quite a cool contract.
Yes.
With OLX, and I hope that that's going to come into your story that you're going to share with us. So guys, Joan is making waves out there in the digital space, in the creative space, and this morning he's going to share his story with us about how he is actually leveraging online technology for success, and he's going to be giving you and I some really great tips and hacks that we can also use to actually leverage online technology for success. So, Joan, with that being said, welcome to the Crystal Legacy Masterclass. We are so excited to hear from you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much. Cool. So it's really a privilege to be here today, and it's really my passion and my heart to help people and with their success, because I know it's a really tough world out there, and I love to just pass on knowledge. I love to learn, and passing on knowledge and helping people to achieve the same is one of my goals and one of my passions. So just to share a little bit about my story. I studied in 2008, where I studied sound engineering. I studied for 2 years, and after I finished my audio post-production sound engineer studies, while I actually studied, I really fell in love with video editing, and I realized that that is actually what I want to do. And so after I finished my studies, I didn't really have any experience or knowledge about video editing, but I knew that's what I wanted to do. So I kind of upskilled myself in that field, and I was looking for a job. So it took me 8 months to actually find my first video editing job, and in that 8 months I used that to upskill myself, to find out more about video editing, to learn about filming. And so eventually I got the job, and it wasn't the greatest job, but it was something. I like looking back, I'm really thankful for that job, because it was a small company, and because it was a small company, I actually learned how to do everything. I learned to do proper filming, proper editing, proper animation, and so that set me off, for my future, which I'm really thankful for. And after 5 years of working at the production company, God called me into full-time ministry. And so, I had this choice to make. Do I leave my career, follow what God says, or, do I put what God says on a back burner? So I decided to go into full-time ministry and, leave the video editing on the side. So I still did a little bit of video editing, but it wasn't my full-time job. I was busy with ministry stuff. And 5 years later, doing ministry for 5 years, God said, okay, it's time to go. And now I was so confused, because, it's God, you called me into full-time ministry, and now you're calling me out of full-time ministry. What am I supposed to do? Because now I'm relying on a salary from the church. I haven't actually honed my skills in video editing and that.
Yeah.
So, and I knew that is what I wanted to do now, going into, but there was so much conflict in me, because do I now start working for another person, or do I just start doing my own thing? And by praying a lot and talking a lot, I eventually came to this site called Upwork, which a lot of freelancers are using, video freelancers, animation freelancers. And this site called Upwork, people from all over the world post jobs, and you then come and bid for those jobs. You can tell them, this is how much it's going to cost, this is how long it's going to take, and then they decide, do they hire you or not? And so that is where my journey started.
Sure.
But it wasn't an easy journey. Upwork is an amazing platform with a lot of opportunities, but it was still difficult to get into. And so I would love to help you guys to also to do that. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But there was also a couple of sacrifices that I had to make in the beginning. Doing jobs for almost next to nothing just to get ratings on my profile, and then that started setting me up, for bigger jobs.
Now that's really interesting, because a lot of people see success now. So they see that this guy is doing so many big things. He's working with big brands. Every week he's posting something new, but they don't see the journey.
Yes.
Now talk to us a little bit about the journey. I was listening to Miles Monroe, and he was saying, don't set out to be a success. Set out to be a person of value.
Yes.
Success will follow.
Yeah.
So did you set out to be a success, or when you went back now, when you had to leave the church or your full-time ministry and to reestablish your career, was the driving factor that you wanted to be success, or what was driving you? What was the main drive?
So the main drive for me was to be in God's will.
Okay.
And I knew that, God has called me for business. It's been something that's been on my heart for a long time.
Sure.
And so I knew inherently that is what God is calling me to, and that is what I wanted to do. When I started off, I did not think about making a lot of money. That wasn't my aim. My aim was to walk in God's will and to do what is necessary to do that.
Awesome. Okay, so can I assume from what you're saying that you love what you do?
I absolutely love what I do.
Okay, so we're building to get somewhere, guys. So what I want to ask you now is what's more important, chasing the money or chasing what is the right word, fulfillment in your career?
Yes, definitely fulfillment. Money for me is, secondary. Living my passion and living and doing something that I'm really passionate about is my first and utmost thing. If you if you go to YouTube, I don't know if you guys follow the Red Bull channel, but the people that usually they film on Red Bull, that do motocross, skydiving, all kinds of stuff. It's these extreme sports, but it's these people that does the most crazy things, and they are the best at what they do. And I just love watching those videos, and then it inspires me to be the best at what I do. Because when I am the best, even if it's something as simple as being a mechanic, you can make waves by being the best mechanic, by taking that passion and drive it to be the best. There's so many opportunities, and just because you've got a skill that's maybe not appreciated right now, if you hone that skill and if you make that skill great, man, the world will come to look at that.
Awesome. Edmund Edwards just posted a comment on Facebook, and he said, overnight success takes years of hard work.
Exactly.
Merv, what do you think about that?
I love that comment, because I read a story this week about a guy that was called to fix a ship, and a seasoned engineer, and he goes up to the ship and knocks the engine with a hammer, and then he says it's $20,000, and the guy goes, no, that was $2 just to knock that. He goes like, here, but you're forgetting the 50 years of hard work that it took to know where to hit it and how hard to hit it. So yes, we look at that one moment of success, and I think that I've known Joan for many years. So when he talks about, I remember when he had to transition from what he was doing in terms of full-time ministry to a new space. It was never an easy space, because there were many conversations, many nights of sitting up and going like, how do I do this? I've got a family to see to. I've got bills to pay. Should I sell this? And often we look at just the one aspect of the business and say, okay, this is where Joan is now, and he's able to provide that skill. So, and we'd ask the question, so what is it that you need to sharpen up on to get to that next stage? And I think having a teachable spirit as well is also one of the important things.
Yes.
And I've seen that with Joan, because what he's not telling you, that even though he is where he is now, he is still studying. So maybe he should tell you a little bit about that as well, because that idea of continuously upskilling.
Yes. Yeah, Joan.
Yeah, so I've been working now for a while, and I've done a lot of animation projects, a lot of video projects, but I've realized that I've kind of reached my limit, to skill. And so I recently decided to take up a motion graphics course to upskill myself, to be able to do more and better things and to go even further. So, yeah.
Joan, I want to touch on the idea. You mentioned something on Upwork with regards to reviews. How important is that, and why is that peer review mechanism important in terms of the work you do?
Yeah, so on Upwork, there's a review system where people, when you do a job for people, they review your service and you review them, as a client. And why I think this is so important and so amazing is that, there's accountability for you, and it also pushes you to deliver great service. Sometimes, especially like in the beginning when I just started off at Upwork, I would take on a massive job and I would only charge them $10, just in order to get ratings on my profile. And, sometimes we have this attitude of, I'm either doing this for free or I'm not charging them a lot, so I'm going to do it half-heartedly because,
Sure.
after all, this is a free job or a cheap job. And, that tends to bite you at the end. And so whether it's for free or whether it's for really cheap, give your best, because your reputation is one of the biggest things that you have in business that will actually help you to be more successful.
Okay, so just using that as a premise, and you mentioned earlier on about being a mechanic. So let's just say I'm not on the online space, but I want to make sure that I use that thinking for my business. What are some of the kind of practical handles you'll give me as a mechanic to say, with regards to my job? I'm based in a community that is quite impoverished. What would you tell me practically around that?
Yeah, so, there's stats that says now that, in the olden days, you used to study one thing and you used to do that for the rest of your life. But times have changed. They say now in one person's lifetime, you will have to change careers 3 times just because of how technology and everything is changing. And so you might have had a skill for a very long time and, that skill might be becoming redundant, but there's practical things that we can do. And some of that is to upskill yourself. Okay. And there are so many platforms at the moment on the internet where you can go and upskill yourself with anything, whether it's web development, graphic design, video editing, program development, software engineering. The list is endless. Yeah. And some of those platforms are Udemy. So Udemy, you can almost, upskill yourself with any skill. And the courses are really cheap. It's 150 Rand, and you can get a full course, an extensive course to upskill yourself in almost anything. And then there's also a site called Skillshare. Now, I really like Skillshare. I think it's $15 a month. And you get to upskill yourself in almost anything. You have access then to any course on Skillshare, the website. And sometimes, I don't want to learn the whole program. I just want to learn one skill. And so that's what makes Skillshare so amazing, because it literally focuses on skills, certain skills within a program or within a certain field. So sometimes when I want to do something in animation and I'm not too sure how to do it, I can just go into Skillshare, just learn that one skill and execute it. Very good.
Awesome. I want to come back to the reviews and the importance of reviews. Because you said something that really struck a chord with me when you said the word accountability. Because reviews actually make you accountable.
For sure.
The fact that people out there are commenting on what you're doing and they're giving feedback on the quality of the work, on the quality of the person that they've just dealt with. That actually has changed the game for a lot of business people. I know in the digital space, that it's made it's we a few years ago there was a site that used to be popular called Hello Peter. It's lost a lot of popularity because all it became was just one of those gripe websites where people just went and loaded complaints. But Google has since has implemented reviews.
Correct.
Facebook has had reviews for a long time for businesses.
Yeah.
And one of the challenges that I come across in business is the fact that once people put a review, you cannot take it down. You can only respond.
Yes.
And doing what you said is that you were strategic in how you actually went about this.
Yeah.
Because you got to know, and this is for every business person out there, those who are starting out in business, those who are if you're finding yourself in a position where Duan was when he needed to get his kickstart his career, remember that reviews will follow you.
Yeah.
You've got to give your best.
Yeah.
You know, when I quoted Miles Monroe earlier, I said, be a person of value, success will follow. You need to give your best in all you do. Even if you're doing that strategic job for $10, or if you're doing a small job for 500 Rand, remember that to you it's a small job, but to the person that you're delivering that service to, it's a huge job. They're giving you a huge project. It's all about relativity in it, and you've got to manage your reputation. We've got a comment that I want to share. Ashwin McCabe, and Ashwin McCabe is one of the legacy men who's out there, who's doing things. He's got businesses. He's got his hand in so many different places. He's one of those people that fully subscribe to Robert Kiyosaki's theory of the fact that you got to have multiple income streams. And one of our legacy men, Ashwin, is just one of those guys.
Okay.
And Ashwin has actually gone on and he said reputation is the key to success.
Sure.
Edmund has commented here on what you were just saying about the importance of upskilling, and he said we update our phones to operate and function better.
Sure.
Yet we ignore
Wow.
to upskill the operator.
Yes.
Hey.
Now I want you to talk a little bit more about the importance of upskilling, because you've mentioned that you've used Udemy, you've mentioned that you've used Skillshare. Take us through the process of how you identify areas in your life, in your business, where you need to upskill and the importance of not just going off, not just finding a course, but the importance of having a network that you can actually speak to about that, having accountability with people. I know when I face certain things, I've got sounding boards in my life. I've chosen a few strategic people in my life who are my sounding boards. Mervyn Naidu sitting on your right is one of my sounding boards. It's important to have that, because when I'm dealing with a challenge, that's also a way of upskilling. Talk us through your process.
Yeah, so there's a couple of people that I follow online in the media industry, motion graphics, video editing, and I always stay up to date with the current trends. And it's really important to stay current, because if you're not current, then you old.
Yeah.
The way of doing things is just old. And so when I follow these guys, I get a lot of inspiration, when I watch the videos. And when I do watch these videos and the products that they are actually creating, there's a lot of shortcomings that I realize in myself. It's like, oh wow, I can't do that, or I'd really love to learn how to do that. And that immediately sparked a desire for me to then learn how to do that, because naturally I am quite a competitive person.
No ways.
Yes. And so always I try to be the best. When there's somebody in the room that has the same skill as me, I want to be the best. I don't want to just be somebody that's got the skill. I want to be the best. So I look at these other guys to inspire me to actually push myself and grow further. Because when a big client needs a video ad, whether it's a TV ad or a YouTube ad done or created, then, they want what's currently trending. They don't want something that's, that used to show 5 years ago. So I need to constantly be current in order to produce the best product that I can. And so as a business owner and as a freelancer, that is one of my tools that I use for my success.
Now that's awesome. Lifelong learning and wanting to upskill yourself is really important. So whichever business you find yourself in, whichever vocation, whichever direction you find God leading you as a business person out there, I want to encourage you. Dr. Carl has a quote that has really become pivotal in my life. And he says, make learning a lifelong goal.
Yeah.
Ask questions, listen. You will learn as well as help others learn. Challenge yourself to constantly learn something new.
Sure.
Very good.
An investment in yourself is necessary if you want to become all that God intended you to be. And I want to touch on something else that you mentioned, Duan. You said that it came from that where you are today came from knowing God's will for your life. Now, give us something. Just share with our viewers. How did you actually get to know God's will for your life? Because I'm sure that there's a business person out there, there's an aspiring business person out there, or there's someone who's still in varsity that wants to one day be successful, that wants to one day be a world shaker and be a history maker, that wants to leave an imprint on this world. And what you said, the importance of knowing God's will. Just share, how do you actually get to that point where you know that you know that you know?
Yes. So yeah, there's two things. One thing is, there's passion and desires that God puts in you, and skills that God has given you, in your life, and those are one of the things that, God use, or how I know, this is God has created me like this, and so that is something that I can pursue. But secondly, and the most important thing is, when you look at the Bible, God spoke to Abraham walked in God's will. God spoke to Moses walked in God's will. God spoke to David, and the list goes on, and they walked in God's will. And it's the same with us. We're going to have a relationship with God to hear what God says.
That's good.
And then when you walk in that, you'll see tremendous favor on your life. I remember when I just, started doing Upwork and going on to, started on my own. Because I walked in God's will, just the most amazing doors would open. I still had to work really hard, don't get me wrong. But because of the effort that I put in, big clients, I would land big clients that I never even thought of landing. And in that moment, I realized this is not me, this is God. And when you do walk in God's will, there is a tremendous favor on your life, and God just opens the doors. But the thing is, to hear God's voice, we have to have a relationship with God. God doesn't, you're not going to find it on the writing of a wall. You can follow that, but I don't know where that path leads. We must hear the voice of God, and to hear the voice of God, we must have a relationship with Him. That is the most practical thing.
That is so true. Yeah. Merv, you want to weigh in there?
Yeah. What would you think is the biggest challenge that you had to overcome, both personally and then from a technology point of view to where you are?
So the biggest thing I had to overcome was to use what I had at my disposal. So, just starting off in business, didn't have the greatest equipment, but I did have equipment, and so, but it was limited. But still, with that limited equipment, I'd made it work. I didn't wait till I had everything at my disposal, like great computers, great cameras, great everything. I just used what I had, and as I used what I had, I started building up, my gear, my everything, and to the point where I've got a really good setup at the moment.
Okay. I love that, Merv, because that touches on something that God's placed so strongly on your life for business people. Use what you have where you are.
Absolutely. And then I think that the other thing that Joan is not telling you is how he's managed to leverage his network. And I think we forget the power of the network that we have. So maybe tell us a little bit about people around similar skills that you leverage, just from a not only a skill but from an input point of view, because we can't go on this journey alone.
Yes, definitely. We can't do this journey on our own, and it's really important to do it with other people. So I think you did ask the question a little bit later, Llewellyn, but I do have other friends and people that I work with quite often, and they are really good at their craft and at what they do. There's also other video editors, animators, and there are some other friends as well that are great animators, great video editors, but they are sitting in the same situation where they've got retrenched over COVID and they don't know what to do. And what I love is upskilling people and also, working together. So, for example, the one person that that lost his job over COVID, I helped him to get onto Upwork, but at the same time, he's working for me. I'm helping him, he's doing work for me, and together we are benefiting. So I'm helping him to get up, he's helping me to get the work out, and working together, we can do more work and make more money. And so, yeah, that's been an incredible journey.
Awesome. Roger Arends has just asked a question on Facebook, and he said, must the business you choose fit your skill set and personality, or can you just venture into any kind of business that's popular and profitable?
All right. So
That's a nice one.
that's a very good question.
So I'd like both of you to weigh in on that one.
Mervyn, you can go first.
I think for me, it always starts with what you have, because sometimes it could be so overwhelming to try and take on something that you've never done before. But it doesn't take away from the fact that you may have a level of passion about something. So always start with where you are, because that area of the unknown sometimes looks so hard that we never take that first step. So I think that just in terms of that question, you may be I may be passionate about something that is out of my skill set, but what are the next few steps I can take to get there? And that's important. But how do I start with where I am? I become much better at the craft I currently have that I'm doing, and use that to help me to get there. So I don't think that it's a one or the other kind of situation. They work very much in tandem with each other.
Yeah, and also, nothing is easy. It doesn't matter what industry you go into. I mean, you can now look at, I think one of the most needed skills in the world is software engineering.
Okay.
But software engineering is not for everyone. It's really difficult. I mean, if you want to study and do software engineering just to get rich, I promise you, you're going to fail. Why? Because when it gets tough, you're going to quit. But if you've got a passion for it, your passion is what's going to keep you going until you break through and, until you start reaching success. So passion is very important to what you do. If you don't have passion in what you do, when things get tough, quitting is going to be very, very tempting. So make sure that when you do learn a new skill or do something new, that you are passionate about it. Sometimes people will love teaching, but they can't find a teaching job. What's stopping you to create teaching videos and post it on YouTube?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Or even on Udemy.
That's awesome. So tell us a little bit more now. Just take us through some practical advice for young people, for aspiring business people, for people who are already. Let's focus on in the creative side now. Now the creative space is huge. We're living in a time where creative is not traditional creative like it was 5 years ago. Yeah. There's such a need and there's such a demand for influencers. There's such a demand for independent voices out there. Tell us a little bit more about the platforms that you use, and give us some practical advice on how does someone actually get involved? How do they go? How do they find these networks that they can become part of? And what should they do to get themselves ranked so that they can also start being featured and focused on and be found for opportunities?
Yes. So I think one of the first things that you can do, it doesn't necessarily have to be creative. There's so many other skills on Upwork, from accounting to data scientist.
Wow.
The skill, the type of jobs that you can find on Upwork, if you can do it from home, you'll find it on Upwork. So any skill. So I would suggest, go to Upwork, create your profile. Start with that. Not just Upwork, but there's also a site called Fiverr. There's a slide there. You can maybe just put it up and look at the logo, and freelancer.com. So those are 3 different sites where you as a freelancer or you as a business owner can go up to get more business. I would suggest go there, create a profile, and start the process. Now, it's not always just easy you've got your profile, now you need to get started. one of the things that we spoke about a little bit earlier is, long-term success will always require short-term sacrifice.
Oh, yes.
There's
Just say that a little louder for the people in the cheap seats. The guys who didn't register to be right here in the front with us, Jay is sitting all alone in the front row here. Just say that again for the guys who weren't able to be here this morning.
Long-term success will always require short-term sacrifice. And so that is where, and how that practically plays off, especially on these sites that you go on, Fiverr or Upwork. The first couple of jobs that you do, you might actually make nothing from those jobs. Well, I would suggest do that because you need ratings on your profile to get bigger clients. And so I would suggest maybe do the first 5 jobs for, next to nothing. Don't aim to make money from your first 5 jobs. Doesn't matter how big it is. Choose some of the easiest jobs and, a job that you are comfortable with, and tell the person, I am trying to, make a living on this platform, whether it's Upwork, Fiverr, and I will be willing to do this job for $5 just so that I can get ratings on my profile. For $5, the client knows he's got nothing to lose, and he will give you an opportunity, and there, give your everything. If you have to work 12 hours on that project and for $5, do it. It will be worth it. Remember, long-term success always requires short-term sacrifice, and those are the sacrifices that you need to be making as a freelancer on an online platform just to get ratings.
Would you suggest registering on multiple platforms or just choosing one?
I would suggest choosing one. If already now, with all the clients that I currently have on Upwork, I'm using about 5 different platforms. Some of the companies that I'm doing work for have given me my own personalized email address. And so I'm at the moment dealing with all these different kinds of platforms, Trello, Slack, Asana, to manage projects with these companies. And it is quite a lot at the moment. And when you're going to get busy, you want to make it as less complicated as possible.
Okay.
So focus on Upwork at the moment is currently the biggest online platform, for freelancers at the moment, and it's the most reputable. So I would really suggest Upwork first, and then Fiverr second, and freelancer.com third.
I love the fact that it's an online platform, but man, my big concern is, will they pay me? So I've done the work. Well,
Yes.
maybe talk us through a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, so Upwork's got a really good platform where before you sign a contract, when you sign the contract, Upwork secure the money from the client. So when you do the work, you know for a fact that you will be paid. So even if the client doesn't hit the, pay this person, when you submit the work, Upwork's got a security thing where they release your money after 14 days if the client, think he's smart and run away with the product without paying you.
Okay.
So you'll be guaranteed to get paid. That's for fixed-term contracts, fixed-price contracts, and then for hourly contracts, if you work an hour, you get paid an hour. That's it. And you log your time with the app itself.
Okay.
You just hit start there, and the app takes screenshots of your screen of what you're doing. So there's full accountability. The client knows you're busy with his project, and there's a guaranteed payment.
Okay, awesome. So those are the platforms, and they're relatively easy to actually get yourself set up. And I think this is valuable information that you've given in terms of building your profile on that platform. Before you went to those platforms, though, did you have to set up your own website?
Yes. So I currently have my own website, and I did set up my website, but it was a bit more difficult because, it's not every day that people stumble upon your website. So you kind of have to, market yourself, share it on social media, share it with people, clients. But because there's no interaction, you're not always guaranteed of a job.
Yeah.
When people start to get to know you, when they talk to you, there's a bigger chance for you landing the job just because of that interaction. And usually when I send out proposals on Upwork, I ask the client, or tell them, can we have a Zoom call just to talk about it? You know, and
Okay.
as we talk through it, you know, they start gaining confidence in my ability, and, you know, they feel at peace and at rest that, you know, I can do the job.
Okay.
So they're like, okay, cool, no, he can have it.
Okay. So how important is having a website in the freelance space?
So if you are only want to do Upwork, I don't think a website's important, because your profile, your portfolio is on Upwork. You know, when you go
Okay.
onto my Upwork profile at the moment, you'll see all my work that I've done. You'll see clients' ratings, and for me, that's more valuable than a website, because a website doesn't have ratings and accountability. So usually when I talk to a client, I send them a link to my website and to my Upwork profile, so that they can actually see the other clients I'm dealing with, the ratings of the people, you know, just to show that I'm a reputable source.
Okay. Social media. What role has social media played in the success that you've enjoyed in this business journey?
So on my Upwork journey, it hasn't benefited my Upwork journey a lot, but
Interesting.
I am still focusing. I want to focus now on getting local clients. So for that, I'm gonna need social media, and I'm gonna need my website. So, you know, to get local clients, you need social media and a website. If you're working internationally, it's not really important to have a website or, you know, social media, because the clients that you get is from Upwork, not from social media.
Okay. What advice would you give someone out there who's starting out with regards to their social media? Because remember, social media is really it can be a dangerous place.
Yes.
It can be a place where you shoot down yourself before you even started because of the foolish things you say.
Yeah.
So from a business owner perspective, what advice can you give people about what should they watch out for? What should they be posting?
Yeah. So, you know, one of the traps that we fall into sometimes is we watch somebody that's really good at you know, social media marketing, and we get inspired, and, you know, we think that in a week's time we're going to get so much business in, and then after that week, when nobody phones us, we get demotivated and we stop with posting stuff. We stop, you know, just being active on social media. And the reality is that, you know, social media is a lot of work. You know, you don't necessarily have to post a video that you made every day, but you need to keep it active and consistently. So those are the two things that's very important. Keep it active and keep it consistent. When you consistently post stuff on there, you know, I think subliminally, you know, your company name gets imprinted in their heads, and whenever they look for that skill, it's like, trust the Holy Spirit to just, you know, remind them of that. Because if you don't pray for your business, that's also another thing. You need to be praying for your business, and that's ways that, you know, God actually helps you. You know, the Holy Spirit bring to remembrance you know, those type of things. So that's important.
Awesome. So Ashwin McCabe wants to know, and he says, please advise on killing competition in a good way. Now I want to hear from yourself, Duan, but I also want to hear from Mervyn, because I know Mervyn is out there in the media space.
Yes.
So basically, what advice can you give to Ashwin, as well as our other viewers out there? What can they do to actually give themselves an advantage over the competition? Because you're never going to kill the competition; they're always going to be there.
No, they're always going to be there. Yeah, definitely.
I mean, from a marketing space, you would know that, Llewellyn, as well. I think it's always important to know what the competition is doing. So that start there. Be able to map out what they're doing, and then look at what is it that you can always do better. Never start to fight in a competitive space. If someone's really, really good at something that you know you don't have the skill, or you're not able to do, don't do it. You know, stick with what you're good at, and then make a noise about that. What is it that differentiates you from your competitors? That's always important.
Yeah.
So there may be multiple people in the space that Duan is playing in terms of video, and we often think that in playing in the competitive space that the first thing we have to do is reduce our price. And remember, reducing your price is not the best competitor move. When you're starting out, as Duan's saying, especially in the online space, as you start to secure more work, then understand what you need to do to be able to rightly price yourself, because you have that kind of skill. So firstly, know what your competitor's doing. Secondly, never ever make it a war on your price. Because if you know what differentiates you in a competitive space, you're able to say, but okay, so they're giving you that, but do you know I do this really well, and you're not going to get this from anyone else. So talk about the things you do well and make that your focal point.
Correct. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now that's actually so true. We've got to choose our battles. So you choose the fight. Don't just get into the ring with anyone. I would never get into the ring with Mayweather, because he'll kill me. But if he has to get into my ring, if he has to get into my arena, in the place that I'm good, if he wants to talk brand strategy, I'll wipe the floor with him. But if I get in a boxing ring, he'll wipe the floor with me.
Yeah.
So it's important in business to choose your battles and focus on like Mervyn was saying, focus on your strengths. Too many people want to fight in a price war. Understand now that we're not talking about the strategic moves that Duan was advising you when you're building your profile. You've got to do those cheaper jobs, or you've got to do big jobs for less, so that you can build credibility and you can build your profile. But once that profile is built and you've got a record of success, focus on your success. Don't keep cutting your price, because once you cut your price, you'll never get back to the point where people are paying you based on the value you're delivering. They'll always think that you're an Oriental Plaza on wheels, and you're always going to negotiate.
Yeah, no, and it's exactly like you said. In the beginning, I dropped my price quite significantly to get in jobs, and after a while, I started upping my price. And when you bid for jobs, you can see what other people are bidding. And then sometimes you're like, okay, well, should I then go lower than that? And then I reached a point where I was like, no, this is my price, and whether they say their budget is, say, $15, I'm going to go in for $20 an hour, because I've got something that they want.
Yeah.
And so even today, when people send me invitations, to do work for them, they say their budget is $20. I'm like, I just, post my current rate at the moment, and they can decide whether they want quality work or whether they want cheap work. And sometimes there's a lot of people that just want bargains. They'll see how cheap they can get, and they will be the people that keep you busy from actually doing proper work for good quality work for good clients. So beware of that as well.
So give us, what is the tip? How do you assure yourself that you're going to do good quality work?
Yes. So the accountability thing is very important, and I would also highly recommend, just to make sure that you are delivering good work, get somebody else in to see what you are doing and to also comment on what you are doing. Like, get a professional to give comments on your work, because sometimes I remember a couple of years back when I did animation, I thought this was the coolest thing under the sun.
Yeah.
When I look at it now, I cringe, And so it's really important to get professionals to critique your work in order for you to know, this is great or not. And secondly, you need to under promise, over deliver, always.
Awesome. Okay, so we coming to the close of this first masterclass, and it would be remiss of me not to acknowledge the state that business finds itself in
Correct.
in South Africa right now at this very
Correct.
moment. We're in a difficult time where hundreds of businesses have been looted and burnt to the ground. In our personal network, there's a lot of legacy men who can attest to a few of our own legacy brothers whose businesses have succumbed to this
Sure.
to this week of looting. Mervyn, what encouragement can you give to the business people out there who have in this week seen their businesses falling, not because of what they've done, not because of any malpractice on their side,
Yeah.
but simply as a result of the chaos of this week? What advice and encouragement can you give to those people watching this morning?
So firstly, I think my heart breaks when we hear the stories of what's happened with businesses, and to the men out there that have been affected. Just saying, we pray for you, I don't think for me is good enough at this stage. It definitely isn't.
Yeah.
So what I would like is maybe just to ask if the businesses that are impacted, if we know about them, let's start sharing that within our networks to say, how can we help?
Yeah.
And very often we may not be able to help in ways that, let's just say, to increase footfall if you don't have a premises at the moment. But are we able to tell someone about what your skill is, what you've done, about how amazing it has been to deal with your business, so that even while you're in the process of rebuilding, we keep the name and the reputation of your company alive.
Lovely.
So I would encourage us to do that. And I met this amazing young man at the last session, and he was selling cheese and spare ribs.
Yes.
I'm sure he's been impacted negatively by what's happening at the moment, but how do we tell more people so that we start to grow his circle of influence? I just think that we all know people, but let's start telling someone, hey, listen, do you know that Llewellyn's a chartered marketer? And if you're looking for strategic advice about what you need to do about your business, why don't you speak to him? So that would be, for me, the practical thing that we can do at the moment.
Awesome. Thank you. Duan?
Yeah, I would say, if you've got this industry, try find people with the same jobs, and partner with them. Even though, you might have to reduce your profit in order to take them on board or to help them. But, what you sow, you will reap at the end of the day, and, God honors that.
Awesome. So, guys, thank you so much for your input this morning. We've come to the close of our first masterclass. It's been a really insightful and fun conversation, and I know that there's been valuable insights shared. So I'm looking forward to the next masterclass. Keep watching the legacy groups. Keep watching the Crystal Facebook and social media pages so that you don't miss out on the next one. If lockdown regulations permit, the next one will be an in-person event. I want to encourage you, though, as we continue, even in the face of uncertainty, know whose you are.
Sure.
Duan touched on it earlier.
Yeah.
Your success doesn't come from who you are. Your success comes from whose you are. You need to know whose you are. You need to have a relationship with your Maker. You need to have a relationship with God. The same way my children know my voice, and we can be far apart. But if I say something and they hear my voice, they will hear, and they will actually do, and they will actually come if I call them. If you don't have a relationship with God, you're not going to hear His voice. You're not going to recognize His voice. And when God plants those seeds, when He gives you the direction that you need, when He gives you the wisdom, when it's planted out there, when He shows you where you should go and what you should do, if you don't know His voice, you're not going to hear Him. So I want to encourage you, if you want to be successful, if you want to make a difference in your world, in the business world, wherever you might find yourself, it all begins and ends with your relationship with God. Thank you so much for being part of the first Crystal Legacy Masterclass, where we spoke about online technology, and we've Duan's taken us through his exciting and interesting journey. I trust it's been of value and that it's been beneficial to you. I want to encourage you, continue sharing these videos, and make sure that you are at our next masterclass. This is Llewellyn on behalf of the Crystal Legacy Men's Ministry, just saying thank you so much for joining us. To our guests, Mervyn
Thank
Naidu
you very much for having
and
us.
Duan from Skarkwyk, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights and your heart. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
God bless, and we'll see you again soon.